Hey everyone, this is Josh. I want to talk about the situation involving ToonKriticY2K. The purpose of this video is to present the truth of events in a clear, understandable way in order to help people get closure and to help people heal from this ordeal. I first learned about ToonKritic's actions on January 19th, 2018. British Ninja and some other members of Toon's Skype revealed to me that Toon had been engaged in pedophilic behavior for nearly a year with someone who we shall call Sally, because she still wants to be as anonymous as possible. I was shocked and confused that this happened. I didn't want to believe it, but as I was shown the long list of Skype chats between Toon and Sally, it became clear that Toon had done something terrible. I'll admit, I had no experience dealing with a situation of this magnitude. No one did. A chat room containing several of his victims and friends was created so people could heal and so we could all figure out what we were going to do about this. A lot of people had many different opinions on the subject, and what we decided to do in the end changed as more and more people were added to the call and offered their perspective. Everyone, including me, was angered, saddened, disappointed, and at that point a lot of us weren't thinking clearly. There was a lot of confusion during this process, mainly because everyone wasn't online at the same time, so a lot of people were unsure about what the final plans were, and even some still are after the fact. Eventually, through a lot of deliberation, we managed to come to a decision. As people shared their testimony, it came to light that Toon would likely try to find people sympathetic to him to get his side of the story and try to frame himself as a victim. We realized we had to get to everyone else first, so we kept it silent until his closest friends, associates, and colleagues knew about it. We weren't going to let him try to talk to people to smooth things over and jeopardize everything. In the end, we were successful to the point where the only people who would claim his innocence were his family. Many in the group just wanted to leak everything to the internet immediately, but it took a bit of convincing that that was an unwise decision. Firstly, Sally did not want to have her name forever linked to this scandal, especially at her age. Secondly, the wiser thing to do would be to hold off on reveals until we had statements prepared so there wouldn't be any misinformation spread. We also said that we would confront Toon in a call to tell him to turn himself in to the authorities. We also recorded the call in order to help some of the affected get some closure. Toon was brought into a call with about 6 other people, including myself. Most of them just wanted to listen in, while British and I would talk to him as a sort of good cop, bad cop routine to elicit a confession out of him. We didn't use that terminology specifically, but it was what was understood. The plan was to talk Toon into confessing his crime to the police and take his punishment with dignity. If Toon refused, then my plan was to simply wash my hands of him, end communication permanently, and let the internet do the rest after we made our statements. All of us proceeded to remove Toon from all projects with which he was associated, including, but not limited to, Analysis Anarchy and Brony D&D. We also contacted many convention heads as we could to make sure that he was promptly banned from attending. Now, I did say in the call that we weren't going to reveal anything if Toon went to the police, but honestly, that was lip service to try and get him to cooperate. After all those teary-eyed promises of trying to get better, just to find out that these threats of intimidating people, the silence coming to light, and he's been grooming for a minor for over a year, right under our noses? There was no way we were going to trust a word he said. We sent the reports anyways, and we were going to make statements anyways. In fact, while those in charge of reporting were writing the report, people in the group who knew of what was going on were working on their statements and initially only sharing them as a sort of group therapy session. It was a form of catharsis, and we breathed a sigh of relief after we sent in the reports. We thought we could take some time to heal, gather ourselves, and plan a way to break the news gently and with as many answers to people's questions as possible, especially after we learned if there were to be legal consequences and what those consequences would be. But, unfortunately, someone leaked the call and the screenshots, and has turned into a giant fustercluck of confusion and misinformation. This is a huge thing we wanted to avoid for several reasons. Reason 1 was because we had to ensure that Toon's behavior was reported to the proper authorities once we had all the evidence and report ready. After that, remaining publicly silent about it while the investigation was ongoing was paramount. Investigations need to have minimal interference to ensure that all the relevant details are uncovered properly. If cases like this are made public before the authorities can properly examine the facts, it can jeopardize the process and lead to criminals, like Toon, escaping justice. Because he's been chased off the internet and all of his social media has been down, that's less evidence for the police. Another reason was, like I mentioned earlier, not everyone was on the same page and not everyone was fully informed of everything due to time differences, life interfering, important information accidentally being buried in the hundreds of messages in a single large chat room, or just being physically or emotionally unavailable due to the stress of the situation. As such, people would have conflicting information and would likely unintentionally hurt themselves and others by saying the wrong thing. Not to mention that some of his victims were still suffering, as well as the rest of us who had to deal with it. We hadn't had time to process. I know some people who were still physically ill when the video was leaked, and the stress caused them to get worse and to hurt more. Then, some of us were bombarded with accusations, insults, and anger when we were hurt too, and we were still healing. Several people who were on the verge of completely healing are back to square one because they're being accused of things that they aren't responsible for. There was a lot of misery that the leak caused, not to mention the pain the aftermath caused as well. And of course, the technical work of erasing Toon from all the projects we had done with him was a monumental task, both in regards to volume and emotional weight. None of this went as planned, and we didn't know how to deal with it. There's a big accusation that because we were acquainted with Toon, that we were privy to all of his actions and behaviors and simply swept all of it under the rug. I've been seeing a lot of said accusations directed at nearly everyone who worked closely with Toon. I would like to dispel these rumors now, as there's more nuance to the situation than that. To use myself as an example, I wasn't an active member of Toon's Skype nor his Discord rooms, where several of Toon's victims reference his bad behavior. I showed up for the occasional live stream, but I never engaged in chats. Anyone can tell you that I'm not a fan of large chat rooms, and the only reason I was a part of the Coping with Toon room was because people needed my help. And even then, there were nearly 50 people in Toon's room, each with varying levels of engagement in the chats and calls. So you can judge for yourself on how fair it is to claim that every one of these people knew every little incident involving Toon. There are also questions as to why outrage over Toon never happened sooner. As someone who wasn't aware of everything that happened involving him, I honestly couldn't tell you. But I have listened to a lot of people, especially his victims, and from what I gather, there are 4 answers. People were either 1, intimidated and or blackmailed into silence by Toon, 2, manipulated into seeing the story a different way by Toon, which caused people to not believe his victims, 3, begged by Toon for second chances to improve when he was caught for the less vicious offenses. To some of the people that confronted him, he showed signs of fixing his behavior. Sometimes he went back to his old behavior, sometimes he genuinely improved, but with recent events coming to light, I even have to doubt that. And 4, unaware of every single situation that happened, or at least not informed of the details. Like, there was drama with Toon a while back, but that's it. Some people were one of these things. Some people were several. The point I'm trying to make is that no one was exactly the same in this. And furthermore, no one was in a position to provide hard evidence of his criminal or past sexually inappropriate actions and have everyone believe it. Until British Ninja was contacted by Sally and was provided with the giant stack of Skype chats that are now floating around the internet. And on that note, Sally entrusted us to do this the right way and to protect her. And now, against her wishes, everything she did with Toon is now up for everyone to see. I can't even imagine how she feels about that. Believe it or not, I've seen nearly every video and read almost every comment disparaging me and my associates for how the situation was handled. Dr. Wolf recently put out a video concerning forgiveness, and understandably, quite a sizable number of people got angry with it. There was a dramatic failure to communicate about what we meant when we said forgiveness, and we take full responsibility for it. Dr. Wolf and I are Christian, different denominations, but still Christians, and as such, we fail to recognize a huge disconnect between our secular and non-secular audiences, and that's not your fault, it's ours. As for me, I did share that video around to several in my audience, and I apologize for making that enormous error in communication and needlessly upsetting you. We do want to offer a clarification. The word forgiveness for most Christians holds a drastically different meaning than for most secular audiences. First, I want to talk about what we don't mean. Some think that when we say forgiveness, that we mean we need to run up and hug this guy and have all sorts of lovey-dovey feelings towards him, or that we mean forgive and forget. No. We don't believe that. No one in their right mind would defend nor absolve Toon's actions. Grooming a minor for pedophilia, soliciting child pornography, being in possession of said pornography, and exchanging some of his own are inexcusable crimes. The law is very clear that he needs to pay for what he did, both the laws of the land and the laws of God. I am in total agreement with everyone. Another thing we don't mean is to dismiss the pain that Toon's victims are going through. To all of Toon's victims, we hear how much you've suffered, and we do want you to be heard. We are sorry that you had to fight through the pain for so long, and we're grateful that you had the courage to speak up. Many of us don't know, and hopefully will never experience how much pain he caused you. You should know that all of us just want for you to heal, and we hope that this is the best way to do it, or at the very least, we hope this helps. As for what we did mean, it should be noted that the secular and popular definition of forgiveness is synonymous with acceptance. Ever since the beginning, people have been telling us that forgiveness should be earned. Going off that definition, yes, I agree acceptance must be earned. The Christian definition of forgiveness, however, means something else entirely. It is rooted in something that is not a feeling and cannot be earned. I think it's important to know that when I or Doc say forgiveness, we do not mean that someone should not still be punished for a sin. We simply mean that they should be treated without cruelty, the way we would want to be treated if we had made a mistake of that magnitude. My beliefs empirically state that we must love everyone as we love ourselves, and as such, if I was to commit a serious crime, even though I may believe my intentions are good, I know that I should turn myself in and face the consequences of my actions. For those who might say that you can't force someone to forgive, I completely agree. That is completely up to the offended party. Just like love, it would be rather stupid of me to try and force people to forgive. But that's not what we're doing. We're not trying to force people to forgive. Our intention from the beginning had been to help people heal. However, we see now that we acted much too soon. Toon affected a lot of people, including ones who weren't close to him, but are still angry and hurt. Naturally, as Christians, our first impulse was to try and help, and forgiveness in the Christian sense is often the first step toward that. However, forgiveness in the Christian sense is not necessarily for the offender either. It is meant as a release of the offended. I forgive you, thereby I release my anger towards you. Anger hurts the angry too, and through forgiveness we had hoped to release ourselves and others of that pain. Despite our intentions, we see now that this kind of help should never have been offered in the first place. Well, at least not as an overgeneralized and impersonal public video. What we should have done, rather, was make contact with the victims in private chat rooms or in personal meetings. The videos were a mistake, and now that we have had a chance to cool down and think, we see that now. It was wrong of us to assume that everyone else affected would share our beliefs, and it was a thoughtless mistake for even trying to do things the way that we did. Another issue we faced was that for the longest time, people in our group didn't know there were any other victims outside the group until after everything was leaked and some of our statements were presented to the public. Many of us couldn't show any public support because a lot of us didn't know there were any other victims. Patchwork was the first victim that I found out about. And on that note, I do want to take this time to apologize specifically to Patchwork. We had a conversation on Tumblr about this topic and I messed up bad. I reacted in anger and I came across as though I was blaming you for how you handled your situation with Toon. It wasn't my intention, but anyone can tell you that I struggle with a lack of tact, and you faced the brunt of it when you didn't deserve it. You were between a rock and a hard place, even worse than we were, and I'm sorry for not remembering that. I also want to take this time to apologize to Lily Pete. In my anger, I accused and judged you of things without any evidence, the very thing I didn't want people to do to us. I also want to thank you for helping Patchwork out. I know we've had our issues, but I would be remiss to ignore your work in elevating the victims' voices and offering knowledge to people to help spot and deal with predatory behavior. I want to reiterate that I don't condone what Toon did. Given that he refused to take responsibility and even tried to get his grandmother to guilt us into backing off, and to top it off, he tried to use my girlfriend's fragile emotional state to manipulate her by asking her for help even after she told him not to contact her anymore. He hurt so many people and tried to escape the consequences. This enormous backlash is by his own actions, both of the criminal nature and what he did to try to worm himself back into the good graces of those he betrayed. And as a consequence, he will be stuck with this stigma for the rest of his life. Kind of goes without saying, but everyone should know that after everything he's done, I'm never going to talk or associate with him ever again. In the end, I have a set of morals and values that I hold very dearly, even if I don't always follow them perfectly. I'm forbidden to judge under any circumstance because I'm not omniscient and I can't know people's hearts. I'm commanded to respect the law, obey it, and leave the judging to God. As such, Toon needs to pay for what he's done, but that's not our job. That's up to the laws and whatever system of belief you hold. And as for me, ToonKriticY2K is completely out of my life, and he needs to be brought to justice for his criminal actions, and I will never say otherwise. To those who are wondering about where Toon is, we recently got information that he hasn't been convicted of anything yet. However, British Ninja, That Creepy Reading, and myself have been hard at work over the past few weeks trying to rectify that, and recently we've gotten into calls with the FBI's Internet Crimes Division and Chicago's Attorney General to make sure that the situation is being treated with the severity it deserves and that Toon is paying the price for his crimes. A lot of people are hurting, and I'm trying to stop as much pain as I can. So please, instead of fleeing insults and anger at others, extend support to those in need of it most. Support the victims. Donate to reputable charities dedicated to stopping things like this from happening. Be vigilant. Learn ways to spot future predators. And most importantly, be sure to share love and kindness with others. This is a harrowing ordeal with a lot of victims, and tearing others apart isn't going to help them. The only way anyone can truly heal is through love. I'm Joshua Berner, and I'm praying for love and peace of mind for all of us.
The video I presented was my message about forgiveness. Others provided feedback and fine-tuning, but it was always my message that I felt compelled to share. For each and every one of you who are in pain, who felt as though their voice wasn't being given a chance to be heard, I am sorry. For all of you out there who felt as though we should have taken more time to craft our message properly, I am sorry. And for everyone who is looking up to us, who felt as though we have let them down for any number of reasons during these trying times, we are learning.